As we hurtle headlong into the digital age, pause to ponder just how far we've come. The 80s generation had no .com, no digital. The future they imagined has been transformed by a technology revolution. My, how we've changed. Welcome to a short history of the modern world, charting the good and bad of a quarter century of innovation. This is Stop Rewind. One object defined the style, technology, and culture of the 20th century more than any other creation. The automobile. And there's no guessing why. They're a status symbol second to none. And when it comes to hitting the excitement button in most people's brains, speed rules. In recent history, that automotive need for speed has become an all-out race for national pride, with American, European, and Japanese automakers pushing the envelope clean off the table as they endeavour to produce the world's fastest production car. Just to clarify what that record means, we know there are plenty of fast cars, dragsters, and outright acceleration monsters, some of which are now capable of breaking the sound barrier. But to get the title for the world's fastest production car, you had to get all that speed and power and wrap it up in a road-friendly, street-legal, police-pleasing machine that is regularly produced. The past 25 years saw some brutal competition in the race for the title of the world's fastest production car. You've got to rewind back to learn the pedigree on these exotic beasts. Back in the 1950s, a little-known tractor maker from northern Italy wanted more from a car than his new Ferrari could provide. That man was Ferruccio Lamborghini, and his response to Ferrari was the Lamborghini Miura, with a V12 engine tearing the car to a top speed of over 280 kilometers an hour. At the time, this was the world's fastest production car, but not for long. Lamborghini outdid themselves with the Countach, a V12 capable of 300 kilometers an hour. This was in production from 1974, setting the standard for supercar design to this day, with the engine mounted behind the driver and an ultra-aerodynamic wedge shape. The real attraction is that this thing is ego on wheels. It was the unofficial transport of the 1970s jet set generation, and brash enough to hold that throne right through to the 80s. The overseer of elegance for both the Countach and the Miura was the northern Italian design house Bertone, a temple of good taste that has spawned some of the world's greatest cars since it opened its doors in 1912. Including the elegant Lamborghini Marzal, a one-off creation used by Princess Grace of Monaco. But when it came to speed, neither Bertone nor Lamborghini could hold the throne for too long, because in 1984, a certain Italian stallion known as the Ferrari 288 GTO grabbed the title with a top speed of 304 kilometers an hour, sending Lamborghini back to the tractor factory. All the megawatts of ambition that went into developing these high-end cars was having a greater purpose. As the 80s kicked into gear, high-end horsepower was one of the first places to get a real boost from the latest computer technology. Like the Ferrari Mondial, the perfect place for R&D that would one day go mainstream. This clutchless electronic gearbox replaced the old mechanical maneuverings of a pedal clutch, a direct electronic connection that made for faster gear changes. But a certain nation up north wasn't going to just sit trackside while the supercar race passed them by. Germany rolled on in, and revving its engines at pole position was Porsche. Porsche didn't do things half-hearted. After all, the company founder helped design the Tiger tank. During the 80s, Porsche began leveraging the newly introduced silicon chip with technology like the Tiptronic gear change system. A serious competitor to the electronic gearbox and a component that has become standard on many family cars. It gives the dynamic feel of a manual transmission with the ease of use of an automatic transmission. Another dramatic statement in exceptional supercars was this: the Audi Super Quattro, the first all-wheel drive rally car, and the first all-wheel drive car with turbo, creating traction and speed. It drove Frenchwoman Michèle Mouton to victory as the first female to win a World Rally event. And she also took the Audi Quattro to victory at the dangerous Pikes Peak hill climb in 1985. All up, that was one very fast woman of Audi saying, "Eat my dust." Not something that the designers of the Tiger tank were going to take lying down. Porsche added all-wheel drive to their next supercar to increase handling and acceleration, creating the 317 km/h Porsche 959. It allowed them to overtake Audi in the supercar stakes and then calmly destroy Ferrari's 304 km/h record for the world's fastest production car. It featured two turbochargers, had an aluminium and Kevlar body, and with less than 400 ever built, this car is exclusivity defined. Billionaire Bill Gates even owns one. But Porsche wasn't going to hold on to the title of world's fastest production car for too long. The record had changed hands twice in 2 years. Bragging rights were up for grabs. So, the Americans stepped in with their shot at the title. They called it the Vector. With a modified engine, it had run on Bonneville Salt Flats at 389 kilometers an hour. Unfortunately, a modified car is not a production car, so close, but no cigar. Just as bad for American hopes, neither the Vector nor its later version, the 1993 Avtec, ever went into a production run. In fact, one of the few Vectors sold went to tennis star Andre Agassi, and he had so many problems with it that he returned it and got a full refund. At least it looked good. In that 80s kind of way. So America didn't quite get there, but the Italians did, and this is the car that got them there, at a whopping 324 kilometers an hour. It was the Ferrari F40, and it was designed to steal girlfriends and kick sand in the face of anybody who thought they could make a supercar north of the Alps. It was the last Ferrari ever overseen by Enzo Ferrari, the company's founder, before he passed away. While the F40 was pure, red-blooded power, it had a couple of secrets that helped keep the weight down and the speed up. Like a plastic windshield, no interior carpet, and its engine was so efficient it only needed to be the same size as a little Toyota Corollas. Yet the Ferrari produced 10 times the power. With that sleight of hand, it held the title of the world's fastest production car for the rest of the 1980s. Ferrari also had another secret up its well-tailored northern Italian sleeve. Computer design had become the norm when creating ultra-fast supercars by the late 80s. So, Ferrari got their leading edge by using a human touch. Test driver Dario Benuzzi, the virtuoso of Vroom. Finally reining in every last bit of performance these Italian stallions could offer.
There are cars for just getting around in, And then there are Ferraris. They have supreme sensuality, and people love them. They love the car.
Dario's automotive senses are so finely tuned to what makes a high-end supercar function that he can tell you when the tyre pressure is affecting handling, or what part of the drivetrain needs tweaking, maybe even what species of bug just hit the windscreen. An automotive acumen that let Ferrari stay loud and proud as the king of high-speed production cars during the late 80s. The Japanese also have a fine tradition of craftsmanship. Mix that with a Godzilla-like lust for horsepower and you get this, the Honda NSX. In its early stages of development, Honda was assisted by Italian design firm Pininfarina. They helped envision the wedge-shaped bubble roof design. After that, it was sayonara to Europe and all go Tokyo. In a turn up for the books, Honda even fired the robots of the factory because on the NSX line, everything has to be hand-built. The NSX was exceptionally light, weighing 200 kilos less than the Lamborghini Countach, giving this low-calorie cruiser a superb power-to-weight ratio. Formula One legend Ayrton Senna personally advised Honda on improvements to the NSX's handling before his death in 1994. With a top speed of only 270 kilometers per hour, the NSX lagged a little as a giant killer. But this reduction in top speed was a sacrifice Honda made so you could drive the thing in everyday traffic. You could actually impress your date and drive them home without the car breaking down. And this isn't to say the NSX was some type of toned-down toy racer. It could kick butt when the pressure was on, competing in events like the grueling 24-hour Le Mans race in 1994. The NSX's unforeseen ability to seduce upmarket motorheads without evaporating their bank balance made sure it became an inspiration for the next generation of auto designers. It set the benchmark for a new era where supercars were purpose-built road cars that could handle everyday conditions. This was a complete about-face from the high-speed testosterone buckets of the 80s, where most of the supercars were created for homologation. That tricky word meant those cars were built to race and win in production car track racing, with everyone gunning for bragging rights as the world's fastest production car. Then, lure the world's most cashed-up car buyers. Most buyers didn't need a vehicle capable of speeds normally associated with low-flying aircraft, but it's always nice to know it was there. With this new mood, Lamborghini got back to doing what they do best. With the Diablo, reclaiming the crown at 325 kilometers an hour. But that supremacy didn't last for long. One of the grand aristocrats of auto racing was back from the dead, Bugatti. They dominated the highest end of automotive excellence before World War II. With the 1991 EB110, Bugatti returned with a vengeance. This behemoth of the bitumen had a top speed of 349 kilometers an hour. Even Michael Schumacher was a big fan of the EB110 Bugatti, despite driving Ferraris most of his F1 career. It was another issue, financial problems, that saw Bugatti languish after 1995, until a surprise revival for the brand in the 21st century. But we'll get to that later. The supercar that really dominated, well, let's say devastated, humiliated, and outright demolished the competition in the early 90s, was the McLaren F1, roaring on in at 391 kilometers an hour. To give you an idea how massive a leap that speed was over anything previous, let's go right back to 1966. when the Lamborghini Miura was hitting 280 kilometers an hour. By 1974, it was the Lamborghini Countach at only 300 kilometers an hour. That's an increase of just 20 kilometers an hour in 8 years. 1986, and it's 317 kilometers an hour with the Porsche 959. 12 long years and only 17 kilometers an hour clawed onto the title. Now jump to 1993, and at 391 kilometers an hour, McLaren slabbed a mighty 74 kilometers an hour onto the title in only 7 years. That's a phenomenal leap in engineering. Gordon Murray, the McLaren designer, was not inspired by rival Italian and German supercars, but by the more humble Japanese Honda NSX. He even asked Honda to build the engine for the McLaren. Honda declined, so BMW ended up creating the heartbeat of the world's fastest road car. And the V12 engine was built so perfectly that it used neither a turbo nor a supercharger. Murray then mixed in every ounce of McLaren's Formula One heritage, demanding only the best. There's even a gold heat shield inside the engine bay. With such complete and total ownership of the title to the world's fastest production car, nobody else took the lead for years. That's not to say things got boring in the world of high-end exotic brands. Lamborghini hit the scene again with the V12 Murcielago. And for that little bit extra, you could get your Murcielago upholstered in custom Versace leather. Back up north in Germany, Mercedes stepped up with the luxury battleship called the Maybach. This automated monster could rip up the two-lane blacktop at 300 kilometers an hour. That speed would have made this vehicle the world's fastest production car, had it been built before 1974, all in complete executive refinement. The Maybach Brabus was even faster than the Japanese-built Honda NSX. And if seeing a super high-speed luxury car clock 300k an hour on the freeway isn't enough to do a double take in your rearview mirror, then perhaps this will. A police car capable of 309 kilometers an hour. It's the Lamborghini Gallardo, a mid-engine machine with that classic aerodynamic wedge-shaped profile, making it a direct successor to Lamborghini's Murcielago, Diablo, Countach, and Miura. This police Lamborghini was even used to drive human organs for transplant in emergency situations. Possibly the most noble and humanitarian use ever invented for a revved-up road rocket. This science fiction-looking machine is Australia's entry into the supercar universe. It's the Redback Spider, and it was fast. And easy to drive, on street or on track. Unfortunately, it never went into a full production run, so it was a no-go in the race for the world's fastest production car. Another new entrant into the supercar stratosphere also guaranteed some serious wow. The British-built Ariel Atom with better acceleration than any other car on the road, travelling from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 2.7 seconds. To put that into perspective, the very latest Lamborghini Murcielago does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.2 seconds. Yep, this little atom is fast, and it gets there by carrying only what's necessary for accelerating. Only one problem with that logic. In the pursuit to save weight, the Atom's designers decided not to have a roof. So when it rains, you and your passenger are going to get very wet. Another point is that the Atom's lightweight engine only has the power to crank out a top speed of 249 kilometers an hour. Then again, for street legal fun on a sunny day, the Atom is 100% rock and roll. On the topic of fun, the past 25 years sure has created as many jump starts and almost rans as it did supercars. Never worse, like this art car Land Lobster, begged the statement, I might not know a lot about art, but I know what I'd like to drive into a gorge. Then, there was the Japanese science fiction car, which looked like a robot had gotten busy with a wheelchair. We can only hope this terrestrial UFO came with black market laser blasters to free up the disabled parking spot. Some other Japanese favourites from recent decades were an aqua vehicle, a tripod-mobile, and a minicar that folded out. Or is that a skateboard with a roof? But the weirdest, wackiest set of wheels ever to hit a freeway has to be this convertible, designed to bend like a banana to get around corners. Some might say that idea's a little slippery. Back to the record book with this slice of Swedish supertech, the Koenigsegg. It grabbed McLaren's previous record of 372 kilometers an hour and smashed it with a top speed of 403 kilometers an hour. And it did it stock standard without any extra bells or whistles. So back in 2005, the Koenigsegg you bought off the showroom floor would give you the fastest possible speeding ticket. No sweat. Out on the horizon, though, loomed some serious speed, power, and luxury. A vehicle that was the most significant supercar since the early 90s McLaren. It was descended from a racing bloodline that had its roots in the workshop of an automotive master over 100 years ago. It had reappeared briefly in the 90s to take the record for the world's fastest production car, and it was back. The French-made Bugatti Veyron. Its top speed a mind-numbing 407 kilometers an hour. Since the Veyron, there have been other cars along to challenge the title, and out on the salt flats, they're now getting cars up to speeds in excess of 1,000 kilometers an hour. So, the technology is out there to keep these exotic beasts going faster and faster, which means we've still got a long way to go before the race to build the world's fastest production car is done and dusted. As you've just seen, that race has already produced some sublime creations, like the Lamborghini Miura, the Porsche 959, and the McLaren F1, all of which will hold a place in the hearts of automotive fans forever. But one can arguably say that the Veyron is the first supercar of the 21st century.